In 2012, a study found that 9.5% of the US population had consumed cannabis in the past year. This was an increase from a study in 2002 where the percentage lay at just above 4%. With such drastic increases, it is easy to see why legalization of cannabis has become such a widely discussed topic as of late. I am of the firm opinion that keeping cannabis on the long list of illegal or restricted drugs is not only impractical to our society, but detrimental. Here's why. Firstly, no matter how you try to dismantle the cannabis industry, it will not work. As already mentioned, a large portion of the American population consumes cannabis. From this, we can draw that the market for the substance is large, $40 billion per year large, as a matter of fact. This money almost exclusively ends up in the possession of drug cartels, gangs, or other illicit individuals. If we fight cannabis supply side, there will be less cannabis to go around. This, of course, does not diminish demand. Therefore, prices will rise for the now scarce drug. The dealers and traffickers who are not caught will therefore jack up prices, leaving the industry worth just as much as it was in the first place. On the other hand, if we go after the consumer, who will usually only have a couple of grams on him at any given time, the cost of enforcing laws becomes much too high. Dishing out small fines and community service will cost too much in courts and lawyer fees, making it not worth the trouble. In addition, with 30 million users, individual arrests and enforcement will not create enough fear of the law in users to discourage them. Therefore, actively fighting the industry is proven ineffective. This is one of the major reasons why the war on drugs has failed so miserably. It's costing taxpayers an estimated grand total of $51 billion a year. Almost half of the US prison population is behind bars due to drug offenses. Legalizing marijuana is the only way to fix this problem. It would reduce government spending in prisons and law enforcement, and on top would give local governments a new income source from cannabis taxation. In the last couple of years, Colorado has demonstrated this fact beyond any doubt. In 2015, they earned $135 million from the cannabis industry, both for medical and recreational purposes. Speaking of medical marijuana is available in many states within the US already, and there is evidence that cannabis does in fact have medical uses. Many of the substances found in the plant could offer treatments, or at least relief from symptoms of, many diseases. These effects have been observed in epilepsy patients, where epileptic attacks were reduced, as well as cancer patients, where cannabis can have an effect on tumor growth. However, these medical uses have not been studied extensively. By legalizing the substance, it would open the doors for proper medical researchers to conduct professional studies that might lead to improved medicine in the future. Now let us ask what effects legalization would have on American society. Firstly, cannabis is safer than other drugs that are currently legal. It is virtually impossible to overdose on THC, the psychoactive ingredient in pot. This is a stark contrast to alcohol, where thousands of alcohol poisoning deaths are reported each year. Also, the manner in which people act while drunk versus high is significant. Whereas drunk bar fights are regular occurrences and drunk individuals are commonly blamed for disturbing the peace, stoned individuals are only rarely ever arrested for such acts. Another likely scenario we might look at is when intoxicated individuals get behind the wheel. When you're drunk and attempting to drive, you're 40 times more likely to wind up in an accident than when you're sober. A quarter of all lethal road accidents in the US result from a drunk driver. When high, on the other hand, your chances of crashing merely double. So if cannabis were to offer an alternative to alcohol, we can see that society would clearly benefit. There are, however, two important points that must be made that run against legalization. Firstly, due to its heavy restrictions worldwide for the past century, cannabis and all its effects on the human body have not been fully researched. It is suggested that smoking pot has similar effects on the lungs and other organs, such as the sexual reproduction organs, like cigarettes would. But long-term studies have yet to prove this. Also, possible links between psychological damage and long-term use of cannabis have been suggested. Again, lack of research into the plant limit our knowledge on the topic. Therefore, it's reasonable to say that we still know too little about the drug. If we were to legalize it, expanding our knowledge on its effect would have to be a high priority. The next point concerns minors. A conclusive study of over 30 Western nations has proven that as cannabis becomes decriminalized or even legalized, the number of underage users increases dramatically. It would be almost unavoidable, therefore, that minors would be able to get their hands on cannabis more easily. It is undoubtedly the biggest downside to legalization. However, the money that is currently pouring into the hands of criminals, the utter waste of taxpayers' money, and our insanely high incarceration rates, I believe, make continuing the prohibition of cannabis no longer a viable option. The most sensible choice we can make is to legalize recreational cannabis for those 21 and over, and to tax it in order to give our debt-ridden country a new source of income. Some of this income must be spent on researching the substance and educating the public on the risks of cannabis, in addition to the prevention of consumption by minors.